Hello, Star Citizens, and welcome to the Alpha 4.1 sale. We didn't know whether or not we would get a sale, but I was pretty sure that we would get a sale. So looks like there's 22 ships available and a few CCUs, so we're gonna go through them and, as we always do, talk about which ones are worthy and which ones are not. And of course, as always, we are doing our ship giveaway contest for both our live videos and our recorded videos. So for our recorded videos, we're giving away a Mustang Gamma, and I don't know what we're giving away for our live videos, but we'll figure that out. Go check out my live videos if you want to qualify for those. And of course, if you want to qualify for our monthly giveaway here on our recorded videos, make sure you leave a like or dislike, make sure you leave a comment, and make sure you are subscribed. All right, let's jump right into it. All right, Orbital Assault. We all talked about this on my live. If you want to go check that out, we actually watched the video on the live and went through that. So we'll skip right through the laser stuff. Yep, this is the, we didn't watch this video, but this video is really cool. Go check this out if you haven't already. It's actually one of the better Star Citizen videos that CIG has dropped. And of course, we got the launch of the Geo and the Drake Golem. So we'll have reviews coming out for those by the end of next week. We gotta, actually get inside of them and do something interesting with them. But one thing I will say is CIG knocked it out of the park with the price on the Golem. It's 60 bucks, I think. So 60 bucks, I was not expecting that. So kudos to CIG for finally getting the pricing right on these ships. It's a true starter ship. So not comparable to something like the Prospector, but here's hoping for a Prospector CCU. All right, to the ships. Actually, before we go over the ships, let's do the special offer thing. All right, so looks like there's a Cutlass Black starter pack. We normally don't go for these, but I just want to see what's in it. You get the game and not much else. So I mean, technically, what is it? 110 for the Cutlass Black. So I mean, we don't really get those, but if you care about LTI, if you don't care about LTI, you can go ahead and get that. This one, you get the paint, the game. That's a true starter pack right there. LTI. Now that's one that I would say is worth it. A Golem starter pack, yeah, or Golem. I think it's Golem. We're gonna go with Golem. And then here's one I didn't see coming. You get this bundle with a ship paint for 30 bucks. If the ship paint is like 11 bucks and then the armor itself is like 10 bucks and then the rifle itself is like 7 bucks, I would say this is probably like 28 bucks. So it's almost priced correctly, but even then, if you're buying it all as a bundle, you should be heavily discounted, not $1 or $2. This actually seems overpriced, so I don't know. But it is Warbond, which makes it weird. It's overpriced and it's Warbond, so yeah, they still need to figure out how to price things like this, I think. And then it looks like there's a Tumbril Nova upgrade and a Drake Corsair upgrade. Stick around for the end of the video and we'll go over all the CCUs that are available. These are some pretty decent CCUs though. All right, to the ships. So we start with the Atlas. The Atlas is one of those things. Well, let's actually do the Atlas and the Atlas Geo. So this is $45 and this is $40. I think the Atlas, the original Atlas, was overpriced, which means I think the Atlas Geo is overpriced, but it's not overpriced by much. I think this should have been 30 bucks and I think this should have been 40 bucks. Or not 40 bucks, 35 bucks, $40 for credit, and 35 Warbond. And I think this one should have been 35 credit, 30 Warbond. That would have made a lot more sense to me, but it's not overpriced by much. So it is what it is. I've already said my piece about the Atlas. I think it's great for people who have ships that don't have a tractor beam. I also think it's great for people who want to be able to easily move stuff on and off of ships that have kind of an awkward way of filling up those ships. So like there's some ships where when you're putting the cargo on, you have to do all these different containers and you kind of got to play like a game of Legos and trying to put stuff together in a way that it fits, especially if you have something like a Zeus, right? So I get it. for that. I also think it's great for ships. It turns some ships into ships that I normally wouldn't recommend. So for instance, like the Mercury Star Runner is not a ship I would normally recommend, but with the addition of the Atlas, it's a ship I definitely recommend because you put an Atlas in there and it becomes a legitimate cargo ship, along with its ability to, of course, carry vehicles and do data running in the future. Obviously, it still needs that second entrance, but that's what I mean. It's something that you can purchase that will change the way you play the game. Now, on the other end, the Atlas Geo, its ability to fly for jump, really, not fly. Let me correct that. Its ability to jump and its ability to like descend into caves and stuff like that, I think is what really sets it apart. So I do think it should be more expensive than the Atlas. And it's a flying mech. I wasn't sold on it originally. I knew it was going to be a little overpriced, but I'm okay with this being a little overpriced because they did so well on the Golem's price. So I'm not going to give them crap for it because they got one right, and they got the one that matters right. So the Atlas Geo, I mean, it was only going to ever be a difference of 10 to 15 bucks anyway. So that's not as big of a deal. The Golem I thought was going to be 100 and something. So the fact that they dropped it so low, I think is really great. But I think the Atlas Geo is the better of the two. If I could only pick one, I'd probably pick the Geo. However, if you're not that into mining and you just want to get like a sense of what mining gameplay is like, I think the Geo is a really great introduction to it. Now you don't have to buy a $60 ship. You can just buy the Atlas Geo, and I think it's cheaper if you buy at Warbond anyway. So yeah, I just think this is a great way to introduce people to mining who probably would have never done any mining without this. But also, it's kind of mandatory for the new mission. I wouldn't say mandatory, but it makes that mission a lot easier. So I kind of see what they did there. They gave you a mission where you can immediately use this. So I think it's great. I think it's not. I thought when I originally looked at it, I thought it was going to be something that kind of stepped on the Gray Cat Rock, but it looks like it's just completely different and it's for a completely different purpose. So I am fully satisfied with the way that they introduced this, and I'm hoping that this is another step towards the combat mech that we all deserve. All right. The Ares Inferno, it has kind of had, well, we'll do these together. Ares Inferno and the Ares Ion. These have kind of had a comeback. They have been balanced a lot better. They're still not great for, going around and fighting people. They're heavy fighters in a way where they're equipped to fight, to punch up. And really, that's the only thing they're equipped for. They really aren't, unless you're going against another, like an Ion versus an Inferno or an Inferno versus an Ion. Like most of the time, these should really only be shooting at ships that are larger than it. And by larger, I mean by a size larger, right? Or maybe even 2 sizes larger. If you can get a fleet of them, they can, go in and fight. But at $250, I think they're a little overpriced. And that's the biggest thing that keeps me from putting these in the fleet. These ships would be about 200 bucks, and I think they would make a lot more sense at the $200 price mark. Maybe 215, but at 250, it's a little overpriced for what you get because these ships don't have an interior, and that's my biggest problem with them. I get what they're for, but as a heavy fighter, I want to be able to sleep in my heavy fighter unless it's going to be something that has a bunch of guns that I can fight with and have a secondary purpose. Then I could get that, right? I get it. These have, what, size 6 or size 7 weapons on them. I think it's size 7. Has a size 7 weapon on it. So I think the idea is you get so much firepower, but then you don't get really anything else. And I've always had an issue with that because I think, yes, I get it, size 7 weapons, but it could also have some size 1s or size 2s to make it, more viable in a different type of fight. Or it can have so much armor that it doesn't really, it can, tank a lot of hits while you're trying to get that size 7 on target for, the smaller ships or whatever, so that it does become a viable actual fighter rather than something that's just taking pot shots at larger ships. So I like the Ares. I don't love the Ares. I think it's overpriced, and I think it needs a little bit more for what it costs. So that's my opinion on the Ares. The Centurion. So the Centurion is one of those things where it really has a niche. If if you're not worried about doing ground combat type of stuff, then you really don't need a Centurion. But I think in the end game, the Centurion will end up being a really cool thing to have in your fleet, because obviously it'll help with defending your base or defending a position that you need to hold for a temporary amount of time. The biggest problem with the Centurion is that you need a ship to carry it around with. And if you don't have a ship to carry it around with, then, well, it's just stuck on the planet that you spawn it in. So, or the space station if you're being weird about that. So Centurion, I think, is one of those ships that, or I guess vehicles, that you really need to know exactly what you're going to use it for, or you have to be planning for what you're going to use it for in the end game for it to be worth it. Even still, at $110, I still think it's a bit overpriced. I think it should be about $90, and I think it was around $90 when it launched, but I can't remember. If I do remember, I'll put it up on the screen what the original price was, but $90 is about the most I'd spend on it. But you can get it for $90 if you do some CCU or upgrading. So check out my CCU game. I got a basic and advanced guide for how to do CCU chains. So go to my tutorials playlist, and it should be in there. And yeah, if you do some CCUs to get to this, it's pretty good. Corsair. This used to be one of my favorite ships. Now I still think it's a great ship. I just don't think it's one of my favorite ships anymore. But it's still a great ship. It can carry a vehicle. It can carry 74 SCU or a vehicle. Like, you have to choose between the two. It's still got amazing firepower. Still has amazing firepower. Now you just don't have as much access to the amazing weaponry that's on board without having a friend with you. So that's the thing that I think a lot of people didn't like. People call it a nerf. I think it's more pushing it towards its intended purpose, which is it is supposed to be a multi-crew ship, and it's not supposed to have so much firepower when you're soloing it. So I think that's my take on the Corsair nerf. I, however, do think it is appropriately priced for what you get. It's an exploration ship. It's a cargo ship. It can carry a vehicle. It has amazing firepower, and it's not as glass cannon as everybody makes it out to be, but it is very slow in its turning and moving and speed. So you know, give and take, right? So I think the Corsair is a great ship for anybody who's in that price range, that $250 price range, which is also looking at a ship like the Corsair, which is why I can't justify the $250 here that you see for the Ares, because I'd much rather have a Corsair than have an Ares. So you can see why I have issues with some of the pricing. All right. Cyclones, let's talk about all of these. The Cyclone AA, the Cyclone MT. Oh, they only got two of them? Okay, well, let's talk about these two. These are actually the only ones of these that I like are the MT, and there's another two-seater, I think it's the TR, where it has 3 seats. If you look closely here, you have surface-to-air missiles, and you have a kind of like 50 caliber weapon here. So you have anti-personnel and anti-armor or anti-air, right? This is completely anti-air, right? But you don't get the 3rd seat in the back, which this one does get the 3rd seat in the back. So this one can carry 3 people and has ways to pretty much assault anything. See, ground and air-based threats. Whereas this one is specifically for air. Now I get it. This one is a little bit more like better equipped as far as missiles, but I don't think the trade-off is worth it because you have to pay $5 extra to get this one. This to me is the best Cyclone you can get. I don't think you really need another Cyclone if you got this one. I think this is the best one. If you get a Cyclone and you're not getting this one, it should just be the base one because it's the cheapest. If you're just not willing to spend $75 on a vehicle. But most of the time I tell people, what are you really going to use your ground vehicle for? If you're not going to use it often, then you shouldn't be buying these cash. You should just buy these in game. If you are going to use it often, if you plan on it getting blown up a lot, then that's when it becomes more reasonable to buy it outside of the game so that you get that warranty on it. The F7CM Super Hornet Mark II. The problem I have with this ship is that it's not much better than the F7A. Now, if you don't have an F7A, and I said this in my review of this ship, if you don't have an F7A, I think the F7CM is a must-buy for anybody who loves medium fighters, because the F7CM Super Hornet with the Heartseeker upgrade is equivalent effectively to an F7A. So that's the people that I think should get it. But if you didn't buy the Heartseeker upgrade when it was available, I'm sure you'll be able to buy it. Well, I'm not sure, but it's very likely that you'll be able to buy it next February. That's a long time to wait, but that's the people that I think the Super Hornet Mark II is for. I think it's for people who don't have an F7A and want that same feel that an F7A gives them. You can get an F7CM Super Hornet with that Heartseeker upgrade, and you'll be pretty much right there with the F7A crowd, and of course you'll have that second seat. It's not quite what an F7A can do because the F7A is going to be slightly faster and stuff like that, but it is going to be a little tougher than the F7A, so you kind of get that trade-off. But yeah, it's a little overpriced at $240. I was hoping it would be $225, $230, but it's a little overpriced for what you get. But that being said, again, it's for people who kind of missed out on the F7A, and that's the kind of way I would look at this. Or it's for people who just like having that second pilot. You know, maybe you have an F7A and you just really want that second pilot to be able to spin that turret around and do some damage. So if that's what you're looking for, that's really what the Super Hornet's for. The F8C Lightning, as always, I always say, in order to get it, you have to have that golden ticket to get it anyway. So if you don't have a golden ticket, then you can't get it anyway. That being said, it doesn't come with LTI, so I'm already out on it because it doesn't come with LTI, and it's $300. It's one of the most expensive fighters you can get. It's a little overrated. It's a little overrated for its ability in combat. However, I do think if you use it for its intended purpose, then it is great. Like this ship is really meant to fight ships that are similarly sized, nothing smaller, because you will get ate up if you try to fight something smaller. Ships that are similarly sized or slightly larger, and if you kit it out right, you can take out some very large ships with it. But I think it's a great ship. It still needs some balancing though to really get to that excellence level though. And again, for 300 bucks, the Golem. So I haven't done my review on this yet, so I'll just talk about what I know. It's $60, which makes it an extremely cheap ship for what you get. It is a true mining starter ship, which makes the Prospector now not the starter ship. It's not the starter for mining. I do think this should, I think that the Prospector should get a bit of a bump up. Considering that the Golem does a lot of what that does from what I've seen. So I think the Prospector should get some TLC and maybe a little bit of a bump to make it worth the price now, because I can't, from what I've seen so far, I can't recommend the Prospector over the Golem right now, because the Golem can fit into other ships and stuff like that. Like, I have this dream where I'm going to take my Ironclad and I'm going to put a Golem in it, and I'm going to put like the smaller industrial ships in it, and I'm just going to like go and like use it as like a little mini carrier for those things, and then also still have room to put some cargo in there. So I mean, if I can end up pulling that off, I think it'll be great. But the Golem, I think, or the Golem, is for people who really want to get into mining, but they're not $150 sure that they want to get into mining. And I think it's for people, obviously, who know that, you know, the Geo, they don't want to spend $45 on a mech. They'd rather spend 60 bucks on a ship and get like a whole ship out of it rather than spending the 45 on a mech, which I completely understand. So that's who I think should get the Golem. But at the same time, you can always test these out before you buy. And another thing I'll say is you don't need any of this stuff. All you need is a starter pack. The Golem could be your starter pack, but there's, you know, everything here you can earn in game. So don't ever feel pressured to buy anything. We do these things, you know, these buyer's guides for people who are interested in buying things, but you are never required to buy anything. So you can always just buy the starter pack, start out with an Aurora, pay the cheapest price, and then earn the rest of this stuff in game. All right, moving on. The Hammerhead, the overpriced Hammerhead. It's only overpriced because I think it is missing something. I think it is missing a turret on either the bottom or the top. I believe it's the bottom. I think it's the bottom where it's missing the turret that I wish it had. Or I think the top turret and I think the top turret should be a quad size 6. I just think it's missing a little bit of firepower for that $725 price range. I do like that they toughened it up a little bit, but I think it's also the placement of the station where you conduct all your operations on the bottom. What is the bridge? I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. But yeah, I think the bridge is awkwardly placed. I also wish it had some ramming capability, considering it's called the Hammerhead. I know that's based on the shape, but I just wish it had something that was like usable based on that name. Otherwise, I really feel like this is a $600 ship. I wouldn't spend more than $600 on it. If you are trying to get a Hammerhead, it's very possible to get one for $600. So that's what I would say. I wouldn't spend more than $600 on it. But if you need a ship that's going to protect you from all fighters, this is it. This thing eats fighters up. Now, be careful, because it doesn't have PDCs from what I remember. So if you get hit with, it's very capable that it'll get hit with missiles. Now, if it gets PDCs in the future, or if 4.1 brought it PDCs, I haven't hopped on 4.1 yet. But if it gets PDCs, I think it's a little bit of a better buy. But right now, I think if you're spending $600 or less on it, it's worth it. Other than that, it's probably not worth it for most people, because you could probably get something that's a little bit more, that's a little better for you. At that price range, I mean, I'd probably jump up to 750 and get the A2, which it has a lot of turrets on it. It doesn't have the same like visibility as these, but with the amount of turrets that thing has on it and the speed difference between that and the Hammerhead, I think, and of course you get the ability to drop bombs, but even if you're not interested in that, I just think that ship is just the ability for it to carry a lot more cargo. It makes it a little bit more versatile than the Hammerhead. But again, so it's $25 more. And for that ship, I wouldn't spend more than $600 on that one either. So you can get both of these for $600 if you play the CCU game or upgrade game. The Hurricane, probably one of the better two-seat fighters in the game, and another reason why the Hornet is a little bit harder to suggest. Now, I think this ship is one of the more fun ships to fly, but it still has some balancing issues that they need to work out with it. But I don't think anybody who buys the Hurricane, if they look at the stats and compare the stats to other things, I don't think they're going to be upset with what they end up getting. But I will say the Hurricane is one of those ships that I would say you definitely should not fly it alone. If you want to get the best out of it. It's definitely a two-person, put two people in that thing and go. But again, like I said, I always prefer a heavy fighter with living conditions in it. The Nova Tonk. Now there's an offer on this. I'm sure it's like 15 bucks or so. So the Nova, this is my favorite ground vehicle because of what it can do. As far as anti-air and anti-personnel, right? So it has extra things on it it's like an all-around ground vehicle, except it's slow and it requires more than one person to operate. But being able to fit 3 people in there, well, you could fit more than 3 people in there if you're just giving them a ride, right? But it has 3 stations for people, and it's a ground vehicle that's super tough. But the thing is, again, have the same issue as the Centurion, where it's difficult to actually, bring like with you. You have to have a vehicle that can actually carry the Nova Tonk, and there's not that many vehicles that can. So that's the issue you'll run into. But at a discounted price, I still would say I'd probably only spend 95 bucks on it. And again, you have to check and see if you need a ground vehicle. If you're not going to be in ground vehicles that often, or you don't need the ground-based support, then the Nova Tonk's not going to be for you. I have one in my fleet, but I think I have a very unique use case for it. So it depends on what your use case is, and that's when I'd say you have to justify it. The Polaris at $975, it's a skip for me, but I got mine at much cheaper. I think I only paid like $300 and something for mine. So if you can get this at a much cheaper price, then it's worth it, but I'm not spending $975 for a Polaris, as great as the ship is. And don't get me wrong, I think the ship is excellent. I think it's a 10 out of 10, but I thought it was a 10 out of 10 at $750. At $975, I think it's a 9 out of 10. So I think this is one of those things where the price kind of changed my perception of the ship, where the ship is great, and it was great at the price point it was at, but at the current price point, I think it drops to good. Because if I'm spending $1,000 on one ship, I probably should be looking towards an Idris if I'm getting at that $1,000 mark. When this was $750 and you could get it for, you know, the price I paid for it, which is like less than $400, that was an absolute steal. Because it was worth $750. Really, it's one of the few ships that was expensive and priced accurately. But now at $975, it's a hard sell for most people unless you absolutely are looking for this size of a capital ship. Then it's probably going to be, you should probably be stepping up to an Idris or something like that. You know, for a few hundred more dollars, I think the Idris is going to be better suited. Now, if you have a specific use case for this, then I can see why you would get it. But for the most part, $975, that's a lot of moolah. Redeemer. Now, this ship is going to be very interesting to see what it can do when the TAC comes out. I would love to see some Redeemer versus TAC battles and see like how those turn out, because I think that's the biggest competition to this ship. Now, obviously, they don't have the same capabilities and they don't have the same role technically, but I do think the TAC is its biggest competitor. So right now, I can't really recommend it until I see what its comparison stats are to something like the Starlancer TAC, because the Redeemer did get a little bit of a nerf, but it's supposed to be getting like some better maneuverability and some better speed to kind of make up for the little bit of the nerf to the guns that it had. So again, we have to wait and compare, but right now the Redeemer is on my, I would wait. If you're not sure, get a CCU to it, and then, you know, whatever comes out with the TAC, you can then compare it and then see what you like more. The Retaliator. I used to think this ship was a really amazing ship. I still think it's a great ship, but it's so overpriced now. I think this plus, I don't like that it shows these missiles or these torpedoes, because they don't come standard at the $175 price. So I think this is the only one we really need to click on. So if you look here, you can get the Retaliator. I'm not even sure. Do they have the paints? They just have the paints. Oh, they got the modules here. So if you look here, right, you have the Retaliator at $175, plus you have to buy 2 modules for it, because it doesn't come with any of this stuff standard. So remember, you got to buy 2 modules. So you can get the cargo module. There's 2 different versions. Like there's one for the front. There's one for the front and the back. And then there's the torpedo modules, which you can get one for the front, one for the back. Now, here's my problem with that. If you add this cost on, $75 to that is what? $250. And if you want the full suite, like it's showing here, then you need another $50 on top of that. So now it's $300. So I don't have a problem with the price at $300, getting a full-on torpedo boat that has like an interior and you know, places to sleep and stuff like that. I think is a pretty solid price. What I don't like is them showing this picture and then saying it's $175, and then people not knowing, oh, I have to buy all this extra stuff in order to make it do what I want it to do. And that's my biggest problem with this. It's more so a problem with the marketing, not so much a problem with the Retaliator itself. So at $300, I do think it's worth it if you specifically need this type of thing, a gunship. I only think it's worth it if, to me personally, I only think it's worth it if you're getting either the torpedo bays or one cargo bay plus a torpedo bay. The other versions of it so far have not given me anything. Like the amount of cargo you can carry isn't that much. I mean, unless you specifically have a mission where you just where you want to use this as more of like your daily driver type of ship, I can see that. But yeah, the weapons it has on it, I think it needs a little bump in its toughness, a little bump in its weaponry, outside of the modules, and I think then it would be a little bit better suited for that cargo stuff. But also, it's kind of a sneaky cargo ship. Like, a lot of people aren't attacking a Retaliator because they don't know what it has on it. They don't know if it has those cargo modules or if it has those torpedoes. So it can be a little bit of a sneaky cargo ship in that way. So that's the way I would think of it. Think of it as, if you're gonna be trying to do some more expensive cargo, and you don't want people to attack you just because they think you are a cargo ship, that's probably the only reason I would do like full cargo setup on the Retaliator. But again, remember, this price is not what you're getting here. You have to buy those modules. The Spartan. I used to think this was a useless ship. I no longer think it's a useless ship. What I do think the Spartan is a very specific ship. This ship is to get you from point A to point B, and to really just do that and maybe defend against a few would-be attackers along the way. It's really to move a lot of people from point A to point B and get them there safely without having to worry about getting a bomb dropped on them or whatever else. Because in most other vehicles, with the exception of like the tank, you probably are going to get a bomb dropped on you. So just think of it that way. Think of it as a vehicle to get you from point A to point B. My problem with it is I still think it's overpriced. This should be a $65 vehicle, maybe $70 Warbond, you know, but at $80, it's overpriced for what you get. The guns on the top, you can move a lot of people, but I just don't see a lot of situations where I'm gonna need to move that many people on the ground, unless I'm assaulting something. And then in that case, I'm wondering why I'm not just dropping people, you know, out of geos, right? Like, and that's a secondary use for that geo, is I would just get some people in some geos and do like an orbital drop where they're just dropping down out of a ship when I'm outside of the range, and then they can, you know, hop out of the geos and go forth and do whatever they need to do. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's other ships that you can, or other vehicles you can get that would be better suited for the role. However, there is a specific role that I think it's for. If you are assaulting a base where it's like, you know, there's going to be either other players there, or you know there's going to be so many people there that you are going to need to bring like a lot of troops, like a metric ton of troops. If you don't need at least 2 of these, it's not the type of mission that I'm talking about. But if you need to bring like 12 people with you, then I can understand getting some Spartans if you know that there's anti-air. That's the only real reason I could see this. So basically, I would be saying, if you don't need 2, then you don't need 1. But I'm sure there's people that will say that they found a use for it outside of that. I just think for the price, I wouldn't purchase this. There's other options. The Storm and the Storm AA. Now, these don't quite fully have their full capability yet, but I do think as a one-person tank, they're almost accurately priced. I think they're about $5 overpriced, but I think that's what the original price was. So I'd say they're pretty accurately priced. I would go with the base Storm because I think this weapon here is more useful than these little tiny missiles that you get out of this. But its ability to traverse rocks and stuff like that isn't there yet. So it's really just dependent on like, what do you see yourself doing with this? There's not a whole lot of use for tanks right now, unless you're in that scenario like I was talking about with the Spartan, where you know you're going to be doing a lot of ground assaults and stuff like that. So as a one-person tank, I think the idea is cool, but I'm more interested in waiting to see what it can do with its traversal techniques. So for now, to me, it's a skip, but I can understand why some people would purchase it, you know, now if they know for a fact they're going to be doing a lot of ground combat support. And then we have the Ursa. So this is one of those that used to be one of the best vehicles in the game, but then another version of it came out, and now it's like, why would you get this instead of the other version? Well, there is still a reason to get the Ursa. It's because it can carry a little bit of cargo with you, not to mention it has seats for passengers. So I think the Ursa still has its role because, again, like you can seat people in the back and put cargo in the back, whereas the Ursa Medevac, which is the one that I think is the better version of it, is really, you just get that med bed in the back and a little bit of storage. So you can't carry cargo with you. So it depends on what you really need, but I still think the Ursa is a decent buy. I would just try to catch it when it's on Warbond or something like that, or try to buy something a little cheaper to kind of get that $5 off, because at 45 bucks, I think you could pretty much justify 45 bucks for most purchases. And then our last ship, the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is absolutely worth the money. It just recently got a bump up in its stats, which is what I think makes it worth the money. I already thought it was a good ship. I think I would have given it like a 7.5 out of 10, maybe an 8. And now I think it's an 8.5 out of 10, because I think my major issues that I had with it were its toughness and its ability to put damage out, because it had those real tiny guns on it, and they upgraded those. So I think it's a good buy, or I think it's a great buy if, again, you pay a little bit less for it. Now at $375, I don't think that it's overpriced, but I just think it's so much better if you can try to save like 75 bucks on it. If you can get this for 300 bucks, I think it's going to be a solid ship for people who need a drop ship. Right? Remember, this is a drop ship. It is not a combat ship. It's not supposed to go and fight other ships. It can if you have it fully crewed, but even then, I still wouldn't use it for that. It's really a drop ship where you can bring a vehicle with you, and that's one of the best things that I like about it. You can bring a vehicle. It's also a drop ship. You can shoot out of the doors. This is the reason this ship's existence is why we tell people not to buy the Cutlass Steel, because this ship you can get for much cheaper than this price here. I just think it's overall worth it because you can get it for so much cheaper than the steel. All right, now let's go check out our CCUs. All right, folks, and here is our first real Warbond. It's not a good one. It's the bottom of the barrel type of CCU is what we call it, where it's not a good CCU to get unless you absolutely need it. You spend $10 and you save $10. That's kind of the deal here. And when we say save, obviously if you're spending money, you're not saving money. But the idea is, if you want to get a ship for a little cheaper, you got to kind of do this process. So the reason I say this is still kind of worth it is because you just don't see a lot of CCUs at this price range. So getting a little $10 savings it's normally not a big deal for a ship that's $150 or more, but when a ship is less than $150, you just don't get that many CCUs. So to me, it makes more sense to get something like this if you're building a longer chain, but I wouldn't get it unless I either A, wanted a Nova, B, building a bigger chain, or I need this very specific $10 savings. Those are really the only reasons for getting something like this. Moving on to our next one. All right, so this is our second one. This is a much better CCU. Now you can get the Raylan to the Corsair. Now, mind you, the Raylan only goes on sale maybe twice a year. I think it goes on sale during Alien Week and during IAE, so it's much more difficult to use this upgrade. So, but we'll talk about another alternative to this. The Corsair here, though. So, if you get the Raylan to the Corsair, you spend $5, but then you get 25, right? So the idea here is you spend $225, right? But then you get a ship that's worth $250. So, or you spend $230, and then you get a ship that's worth $250. So you get $20 in savings. That is 75%. That is a great savings. Now, it's not the best. We've seen it to where you can save 80% or more. Those are the ones that are like the best, right? But this is an absolutely solid upgrade. This is something where you have to find where it fits in your fleet, of course, where it fits in your CCU chain, but this is an absolutely excellent CCU, and one that I think that most people should pick up. Now, if you don't want to wait so long, which I will remind you that when you do CCUs, it really is a waiting game. You really shouldn't be trying to force a CCU in there to do it quick, unless it's like something where you know the ship is about to come out next week or something like that and you want to really be able to use it. But even then, I'd still say you probably should still wait it out. So I'll say, instead of getting the rail-in, what I would actually suggest people get is the Terrapin. The Terrapin comes on sale a lot more often than the rail-in, or you could even do the Terrapin Medic, but I think the base Terrapin is probably gonna be on sale a lot more. Some of these ships are always available, and I would always say, like, go with those ships that are always available. If you look here, the closest I think you can get to an always available ship is probably the Taurus, so probably not worth it. I'd say get the Terrapin, and then if you look at our deal here, now you gotta spend 10 bucks, but you still get the 20 bucks. It's not as worth it, like I said, but it's one of those where this is the type of upgrade where you'll be able to do it faster. So I still think the rail-in is the better deal. That's what I would recommend. But if you are more in a rush, I could see why you would get the Terrapin. All right, here is our next CCU. This one is a little bit different because this is kind of a weird one where you really don't see this one pop up a lot. So it's not necessarily that this is a great CCU because of the amount of savings. It's a great CCU because of the rarity of the CCU. It just doesn't happen a whole lot, at least not from my experience. But somebody let me know in the comments if you've seen it more than I have, but I just don't see this CCU that often. So to me, it's better because it will fill a gap that doesn't come. It's a common gap for a lot of people's CCUs. So it's one of those that I suggest that people purchase because it fills that gap so often for people. So this one, you'll be spending 15 and then you'll be getting 25. That's the way it works. It's not even a 50% savings, but what it will get you is a CCU that just isn't that common. So again, if you don't need it, if you're not looking to get a ship that's above that $315 price range, then I would say it's probably not for you. But I do think it is for people who have been looking to fill that weird gap that they have at the upper $200 mark or the lower $300 mark. Because I know a lot of people that have had that gap and were unable to fill it because they were waiting on a CCU like this. So that's the reason you purchase this. You don't purchase this as a, oh, I'm gonna save so much money. You purchase this as this is a weird spot to get an upgrade at. So that really is all of the CCUs that we've seen. Not great, but I'd say it's okay considering it's just a patch update sale. You know, it's a 4.1 sale, so it's not like I was expecting a whole lot. I think there's 4 CCUs. Out of the 4, I would purchase 3 of them. So I think that's pretty solid considering what you're getting here. So we had, just a real quick recap, we had this one, the Sentinel to the Mole. Then we had, I think we did the rail-in to the Corsair. Here we have the Storm AA to the Nova, saving you about 10 bucks. Again, this is kind of the cheap one. If you look here, you spend 10 bucks, you save 10 bucks. It's more so because they're rare, they're more difficult to get at this price range. The thing about this though, the Storm AA is one of those ships that comes up more often than I was expecting. I'd say I see this on sale about 3 or 4 times a year. It's definitely gonna be on sale during IAE because everything is. It's definitely gonna be on sale during Invictus because all military related ships are. And then it's normally on sale one time before Invictus, and every once in a while you'll see it on sale between Invictus and between IAE. So 4 times a year you'll see sometimes this Storm AA comes up. Every once in a while it's only 3 times a year, but 4 times a year is pretty, I'm pretty solid in that. Like 90% of most years you'll see it 4 times a year. So I think this is again, because the $150 ones are so rare, like the less than $150 CCUs are so rare, I think it's worth getting it if you need it, but it's also completely skippable because this one will pop back up. Another one will pop back up similar to this where you're saving 10 bucks or so. So there's only 3 of them. I actually thought there were 4, but there's only 3. But yeah, 3 CCUs, all 3 of them. I mean, you can purchase all 3 of them. But I think to me, I would probably only purchase 2 of the 3 unless I specifically needed something to fill a gap. This one is the one that I would hold off on purchasing unless, again, I specifically needed to fill a gap at that lower end, which most people have already had that gap filled. This is not a rare CCU, but knowing me, I like to buy at least 1 copy of every CCU and then melt it later if I don't need it. And that's normally how I get my credits is I'll buy some CCUs that I don't need, hold on to them for a long time, and then realize I don't need them and then end up melting them. So yeah, it's up to you. Do what you want, but that is it for our guide. I tried to keep this video under an hour, so I hope it's at like 45 minutes or something, or maybe even less than that. That would be great. But yeah, there's your buyer's guide. Make sure you like or dislike the video. Make sure you leave a comment and make sure you subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, consider hitting that join button because we'd love to have you here. And of course, it makes your chance of winning our monthly prize even greater. It looks like we'll be giving out a golem for next month for our monthly prize. So for this month, it's a gamma. And this month is ending in a few days. So there you have it. You still have a chance to win. We didn't put out that many videos this month either, so very, very good chance to win this month. But yeah, make sure you leave that comment and you're subscribed and do the like and dislike thing so that you qualify for that. And of course, if you're a new player, consider using our code that's up on the screen. And that's all I got. All right. So I hope I helped you with either some CCUs or buying some ships. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.